Virtualization 1.0, the age of consolidation and utilization. How many of you are beyond or completely consolidated perfectly and get optimum utilization now just in your servers? Forget everything else because you don't get it everywhere else. No one, right? We're still just on that path. This is all just kind of happening in real time. Sure, you've been at it for 5 years, but we're not there. We're not done. And this is interesting. I'm going to call it the beginning of a serious evolution, potentially the revolution beyond that 50 years that I talked about. Very important step along the way. Disaggregating the physical from the logical is paramount, not because we don't like the physical. It is paramount because the only way we ever ultimately strive and take forward significant steps is when we do things that eliminate the human being from having to be in the middle of it. Automation is the only way we ultimately take real aggressive forward steps. So when I put that first monolithic computer stack up there, and you all know, oh, it was a compact whatever, you know, in the old days you had mini computers. Those were our corporate computers. We had VAXs, stuff like that, Wang, Prime boxes, whatever. If you think about administering a system back in those days, you, the sysadmin, who today is the virtual admin, right? Nothing ever new happens. We just keep going in circles. We specialize, then we collapse. Specialize, collapse. The sysadmin back then had to figure out, I'm going to put up an application, I'll put all-in-one up on the VAX. I have to figure out how much physical main memory I'm going to allocate to this application to execute. How much page and swap space am I going to allocate to this system to execute? You had to figure that out, and no offense, you are imperfect. Because you can figure something out right at some point in time and you can be the best in the world, but things are going to change. Your environment's going to change. And you have to be responsible way back then to be able to twiddle whatever knobs you had to twiddle to make sure it was always optimized. And what happened? Kicking and screaming over the course of time, you stopped doing that because the operating system was way smarter at it than you. No disrespect. It didn't have to go to Little League, or it didn't have a real job, right? It just sat there. The computer is smarter than the person at heinous, tactical, manual labor. But as human beings, we hate giving up those control elements. It's also part of our problem. So we talk about virtualization 1.0. Right? What did we do? Our problem that we solved with VMware, which, by the way, VMware solved 10 years earlier. It just wasn't a market problem. It was a test dev problem. But our problem that we solved was a utilization issue primarily. We had a lot. Moore's Law surpassed our ability to consume. All of a sudden, cores were no issue. MIPS were no issue. VUPs were no issue, whatever it was. We had tons of processing capability that we couldn't possibly use in our current manifestations. So because we ran one-to-one relationships, application to server, physical, all of a sudden we had a zillion servers all over the place that were all terribly utilized. So the theory was, gosh, we could consolidate those, get rid of a whole bunch of these physical boxes, and virtualize and make one physical look like 6, 10, 58, I don't care, however many, virtual machines, and allow applications to not know that was happening. Containerize that application, still thinks it's in a physical stack, still operates essentially like it's in its own physical stack, way better utilization of the server. Interesting dynamic. 30 years ago, the server was proprietary, complex, enormously expensive. By far the single most expensive thing in our infrastructure. Storage was a disk drive we plugged in. How simple. Now, the world's awesome. We virtualize stuff that costs nothing. Servers are free, by and large. Processing capabilities are free. And what's enormously proprietary, tremendously complex, and costs a ton? Storage. Interesting. Right? God bless EMC. I was a big fan of that. I was part of that. I take no responsibility, but I was part of it. By the way, I'm biased. I'm an genius. I was at EMC in 86, left in 89 because I knew they'd never make it. I wouldn't listen to anything I said. I'm just angry. Very bitter. So anyway, now we've got these super uber cord mega servers that cost 62 cents connected to storage, and that's virtualization sort of 1.0 type of thing. And then what we had to do when we went down the beginning path of this, we realized, ooh, in order to do that, we're not really just going to have one physical server. We're going to have a bunch of physical servers that we're going to have even more virtual machines on top of. So it forced, even after 30 years, it forced us to move to external network storage. And that, it didn't matter what the impetus was, that's the right thing to do. Because ultimately, we need everything connected to everything, irrespective of the protocol and the wire, et cetera. In order for any of this stuff to kind of work, everything's got to fundamentally be connected to everything. So we moved down and we built this new, the whole super uber industry, $50 billion storage industry. It's awesome, right? It's awesome. And I look at a lot of the advancements that we've made by commoditizing the server. Server's just processing capabilities, flash, cache, memories, and I/O. That's all it is. All the advancements we've made there, and yet I look down to the storage and go, God, that's so 1988. You know, it might be really great 1988, but I'm going to show you some of the problems.